Hello classy people, this is Josh the Top Hat Gamer, and this week I'm reviewing Rise of the Tomb Raider. Gritty reboots of classic series have always seemed to be met with derision and complaints, but you'd be hard pressed to find one better than 2013's Tomb Raider. Though many would pass it off as an Uncharted clone, it was clear that it was the best Tomb Raider game to be released in ages. And so we have Rise of the Tomb Raider, the follow-up to 2013's surprisingly competent outing. Will it reach the same level of quality? More importantly, will it improve on its predecessor? Let's dive in. Rise of the Tomb Raider follows our hero Lara Croft as she hunts for answers regarding her father's last expedition. What she finds is more than she bargained for, as it sets her on a collision course with a secret and dangerous organization known as Trinity. Not only do we find Croft on a dangerous adventure, she's still dealing with the mental stress from her last fateful expedition. It's refreshing to see a sequel actually having its hero dealing with the traumatic events of the previous game. It reminds us that this Lara is not some dual pistol blasting dinosaur killing badass. She's a skilled person that, despite these skills, has experienced extremely traumatic circumstances and is trying to work through them. While the narrative is interesting and the well-rounded protagonist is easy to identify with, the story is not without some issues. My main gripe is that a lot of the game's twists are pretty predictable. Luckily, the lure of ancient lost cities and the promise of a mystical relic is enough of a draw to keep players interested, even if you manage to predict the plot twists from the beginning. It doesn't hurt that the game features a variety of gorgeous locations either. Desert ruins, snow-covered mining towns, and verdant cliffsides are just a few of the environments you'll find yourself in, and the visuals are pretty solid. Character models in the game are pretty decent, but most importantly, the hair effects are amazing. Rise of the Tomb Raider's quality visuals are mostly accompanied by a lonely, ambient soundtrack. More often than not, you'll hear the wind howling through the mountains or wildlife scampering around the forest instead of the game's score. That is, until the action starts to ramp up. You'll sometimes hear the rumbling of tribal percussion in the distance during your downtime, but once things start to heat up, they kick into full swing and are accompanied by the whining of various orchestral instruments. Aside from the game's music, Rise of the Tomb Raider features a varied voice cast who pull off a great job portraying the various characters, and combat sound effects that really add to the excitement and tension of every battle. As far as gameplay goes, Rise of the Tomb Raider is surprisingly diverse. It still tackles the same style mechanics as its predecessor, but I feel that everything comes off a little more smoothly and fleshed out this time around. A lot of your time will be spent traversing the game world. While the game is linear, many areas are quite open, and exploration is encouraged by the inclusion of a decent amount of side content, but more on that later. Most of the early game traversal will have you leaping between cliffs, scaling walls, or using zip lines. As you progress further, however, you're given new equipment and techniques that open up new areas, giving the game a more Metroidvania feel than its linear progression actually affords. Even without the inclusion of climbing arrows or the grappling axe, the base platforming feels more involved than, say, Uncharted. Many platforming sequences will require to use multiple techniques one after the other, forcing you to pay attention. And if that doesn't work, the game throws in some crumbling platforms every so often to keep you on your toes. My platforming experience with Rise of the Tomb Raider was incredibly enjoyable, even if Lara would very occasionally leap to her death for no apparent reason. Rise of the Tomb Raider's predecessor tried its hand at stealth as well as platforming, though I don't recall it being overly enjoyable or even functional. This time around, it feels a bit more fleshed out, having been tied to the game's basic platforming systems as well. Most enemies won't see you if you're above them, and plenty of areas are clearly designed with this in mind. Maybe it's just the snowy locations, or maybe it's the tree-hopping stealth, but parts of this game felt very reminiscent of Assassin's Creed 3, in the best way possible. Not only does it feel satisfying to stealth take down enemies while leaping between trees, it also makes hunting the game's various wildlife a bit more interesting as well. I think what makes the stealth in Rise of the Tomb Raider enjoyable is the brief grace period between being spotted by an enemy and having all of their mates turn up to shoot you into next year. It may not be intensely difficult, but it's very, very fun. Speaking of fun, Lara's cover-based combat skills make a return, as you can't sneak around everything all the time. The soft cover system that doesn't require you to attach yourself to chest-high walls still feels natural and fluid, while each of your weapons has a satisfying recoil and impact to them. You can even craft makeshift explosives or self-medicate during battle in the same vein as The Last of Us. My only complaint about the combat is that your enemies are almost too aggressive. You'll be scoping out the battlefield looking to make your next move, only to notice that 3 soldiers are charging you down. It causes gunfights to become very messy affairs, and this only gets worse as the game progresses and you begin running into more and more melee-focused enemies. Luckily, you're supplied a useful selection of weapons ranging from your silent bow to assault rifles, pistols, and shotguns. Of course, these are all upgradable by using parts you'll find via exploration, which can also net you some alternative weapons like the submachine gun or bolt-action rifle. Like I said earlier, you're encouraged to explore, as every discovery you make will get you some experience points as well as loot, allowing you to learn skills and improve your equipment. Exploration will also yield special challenges or secret tombs, which can be the most fun parts of the game. Every secret tomb has a central puzzle that you have to solve to unlock a special ability for Lara. Honestly, there's a surprising amount of content on offer of what is essentially a linear narrative game. The game does feature some extra challenge modes, but I found that they weren't really good for more than a distraction, or if you wanted to replay specific story chapters with different modifiers. I can't say I saw the appeal in the so-called Expedition mode at all. So, looking back, Rise of the Tomb Raider is exactly how a sequel should be. The core mechanics of combat, platforming, and stealth have all been iterated upon and polished more than I ever would have expected. The story not only has an interesting central plot, but deals with the fallout of the previous game in a way that makes Lara feel grounded in reality. Plus, the game looks and sounds excellent while providing hours and hours of content. Rise of the Tomb Raider gets the Top Hat Gamer rating of excellent. This is now the best Xbox One exclusive game that you can get, at least until it's ported to the PS4. It's just a wonderfully wrapped combination of solid gameplay and narrative that makes me remember what it is to play a fantastic single-player experience. Fans of the previous game should be pleasantly surprised to see the game's improvements, and gamers looking for an adventure can't go wrong with Ms. Croft's latest. Thanks for watching. I hope you found the review informative. If you missed last week's review on Star Wars Battlefront, click the annotation. Now if you'll excuse me, I have some ruins to ruin some more.